Hi, everyone. Good to see you all. Um, yeah, some tumultuous things happening. Unfortunately, His Eminence, the 104th Ganden Tisur, has passed away. Paul, you must have been aware of that. John said that he had not heard. He passed away yesterday. I think I'm going to read a little after our meditation about him. Um, at his residence at Sergei Monastery, which I think, Paul, you were at my little place there. You remember Kensei Rinpoche's place was his much bigger residence was just behind mine, and on a prominence there. So it doesn't mention anything about any kind of rituals that have begun to be taken place, or whether he is in meditative equipoise, they call tukdam. Uh, so there's no word about that yet, but I will mention. So let's begin with our motivational prayers, taking refuge and generating bodhicitta, making requests for the teachings. Excuse me. Sangye churang soke chognam la Changchu badu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chunyen gipe sognam ki drola penche sange drupasho. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. Through the collections I create, through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit migrating beings. Sangye chodang soki chognam la changchu padu dagni kyapsu chi dagi chunyen gipe sognam ki drola penche sangye drupa sho. And as I've mentioned several times before, if you were to hear His Holiness or another teacher teaching it, such as the great Lama, the former Ganden Tipa who just passed away, when they would teach, they themselves would say, Dagi chushe gipe sognam ki, due to the merit, due to the collections of explaining the Dharma, whereas all the audience would say through the collections I create through listening to the Dharma. Now, making a short mandala and request. By offering this ground, anointed with perfume and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the four continents, the sun and moon, visualized as a Buddha realm, may all migrators enjoy a pure realm. And having made offering, then requests to turn the wheel of Dharma, O holy and perfect pure Lamas, from the clouds of compassion that form in the skies of your Dharmakaya wisdom, please release a rain of vast and profound Dharma, precisely in accordance with the needs of those to be subdued. Idam Guru Radna Mandalakam Niryatayami. Okay. So we have another arrival. Suvansha's here, and Elijah Silver. Elijah, have you been before? I can't remember your name.
No, it's my first time joining.
Okay, welcome. I hope you weren't expecting something. We're going to be talking about some tricky philosophical points of Buddhism and Sanskrit grammar and Tibetan grammar today. So first of all, we're going to begin with our meditation on mindfulness of the breathing. Sit comfortably, relax your body, relax your mind. Remind yourself you don't have to think about anything else. And recognizing your respiration, place your mindfulness on it. And with a mental spy, alertness, make sure that you are not distracted from that. And if other thoughts arise, try to pull your attention away from them and place it all on the mindfulness of the respiration.
Mm.
Sometimes you may be partially watching the breathing and still kind of multitasking in the sense of thinking about other things. At other times, you may lose the object completely and just be sitting there. So that mental spy, alertness, introspection, watching what's happening in the mind, has to be coupled with then applying the antidote. If you notice that your mind has lost the object, remember what you're meant to be meditating on. And if your mind is being scattered or excited by other thoughts, take your attention away from them, withdraw your attention from them, and invest it instead in the mindfulness of the breathing. And if you've been successful in calming the mind slightly this way, and I say if you've been successful, meaning that if you do this kind of meditation before other practices, if you haven't yet calmed the mind with the breathing, continue to do so. But theoretically here, having a modicum of quieting the mind, turn your attention now to the nature of the mind, the mental consciousness, rather than the breathing. Give up attention and mindfulness of the breathing. Place your attention and mindfulness on the nature of the mind, first of all, which means its conventional nature, clear light nature. The fact that it's like a clear sky that doesn't impede the emergence of clouds from the moisture within it, nor from the reabsorption of that moisture back into the, into the space, the sky. The mind doesn't offer any resistance to the arisal of new thoughts, new mental events, nor to their reabsorption back into the consciousness. So we can start, first of all, to get an idea of the mind by looking at its contents, the various thoughts that are there, the images, and inner conversation that's going on in your mind. Thoughts about the past, the future, the present. But when you look at the substratum within which they're arising, this clear light nature, clear in the sense of offering no resistance, and recognizing that just from on the verbal level, that that's what's called the conventional clear light nature of mind, the developmental Buddha nature, and feeling some joy in recalling that. I have this quality. All sentient beings have this quality. They can change. I can develop good qualities. I can subdue and abandon negative qualities, negative, if you want to call them qualities, negative factors of my mind. And beyond that joy, further joy, recognize that I am able to know this right now due to this auspicious moment that I'm experiencing, which has another dimension besides the fact I have this Buddha nature, this conventional clear light nature of the mind, developmental nature. I have a life of leisure and endowment as a human being with sound senses, living at a time when and place where I can encounter the Dharma. The Buddha has taught it in recognizable past. There's still lineages of that teachings, of those teachings existing. Their community of monks and nuns and lay people that I am aligned with, and also benefactors like Shantideva Center and others that help us with conditions to receive the teachings. Whatever hardships I'm enduring, I'm not presently in hell, although it might seem that way sometime. I'm not presently a hungry spirit, a preta, nor an animal, nor a long-lived God. which are considered to be unfree states, without the leisure or freedom to practice the Dharma. And then recalling the Buddha's admonition to make use of this because it's so short-lived, it's so valuable, short-lived, and difficult to find again, a life of leisure and endowment, because with it, with a clear mind and the teachings available, and also faith in the teachings to some degree, I can change the course of my future rebirths radically by practicing virtue and abandoning non-virtue. Beyond that, the Buddha said the great use of this life of leisure and endowment is to achieve liberation or enlightenment, the two great goals. And of the two, liberation meaning nirvana, the lesser of the two goals, the so-called enlightenment of the hearers and solitary realizers, the Buddha said those of intelligence of his disciples, they should they should strive for the Mahayana, the great vehicle that brings themselves and all other beings, like the big bus has room for everyone, and goes, also called the Mahayana, the great vehicle, because it brings you to the great destination of enlightenment, omniscience. It may not occur to people, even at the time of the Buddha. Many of the hearers and solitary realizers were not predisposed to following the Mahayana, even though the Buddha himself told of his bodhisattva past and that such a path existed. They were still intent on finding their own liberation for themselves alone, getting out of this place. But having recourse to the Buddha's teachings of the fact that all living beings have been our mother numberless times, not they may have been our mother, as someone recently wrote to me, maybe that octopus, maybe they had been my mother in the past. They definitely were our mother in the past, numberless times, not as an octopus necessarily, but in many, many forms. All of these beings that have different appearances right now, we don't recognize as mother. But that's the great first step, the mashe, recognizing all living beings have been our mother numberless times, and going beyond that to recall that they have been depthlessly kind as mother, and within the training of the mind of equalizing and exchanging self and others, to even go beyond that to recognize all these beings have been kind even when they were not our mother, when they were, of course, when they were friends, they've been kind, but they're kind when they're strangers. They provide the infrastructure for our lives. They deliver the milk, the mail, they pay our wages. They make movies for us. Even when they're enemies, they're kind because they turn our mind to the Dharma. They give us a chance to, so when they're appearing as enemy, it doesn't mean they're actual enemies. They appear as enemies temporarily and help us to purify negative karma by their enmity, by their actions that we perceive as harming us. to develop a sense of responsibility to them, recognizing they are exactly the same as us and wanting to be happy, wanting to be free of suffering. And that for numberless lifetimes, we have alternately ignored them completely or tried to help them temporarily with education or as, helping their health or, being their coach, whatever. Now we have a chance to repay their kindness, and in so doing, create the causes to achieve the two Buddha bodies. The Dharmakaya, which is the ultimate own benefit, the benefit of one's own rangdong, one's own aim, the ultimate aim of oneself, to have a mind that's completely free of suffering and omniscient, experiencing everything with total bliss, and to achieve the welfare of others, meaning the ability to emanate the two form bodies, the Rupakaya, two Rupakayas, the Nirmanakaya, the emanation body, like Shakyamuni Buddha, and the Sambhogakaya, the body of enjoyment, like the various forms of the Sambhogakaya in pure realms that teach the Arya Bodhisattvas until the end of samsara. In order to achieve these two aims, to bring about the benefit of sentient beings through omniscience, so that we can teach them and lead them effortlessly to know the various stages that can lead them, even over many millions or billions of lifetimes it might take because of their karma. We need to accumulate the two collections of merit and wisdom that can sort of fertilize the subtlemost mind and subtlemost wind within our own continuum. Those are the entities that will become the omniscient mind and the form bodies. Subtlemost mind becoming the omniscient mind through the fertilization of the collection of wisdom, and as the main condition, and the subtlemost wind becoming the form bodies through the fertilization of the collection of merit on the conventional level. Recognizing I know very little of this, only superficial, what is generally taught to good people, how to be good, but not so much about the wisdom aspect. Recognizing that the Buddha taught the wisdom aspect and the method aspect in the Perfection of Wisdom Sutras, which were explained by Nagarjuna some 400 or 500, 600 years after the Buddha's passing, and how those were in turn, his teachings, fundamental wisdom, was commented on by Chandrakirti in his Madhyamaka Vatara, which in turn was clarified in Lama Tsong Khapa's Gompa Rapso, which we're studying, the illumination of the intention. What was the intention of Nagarjuna and the Buddha? As that's the material of our class, think I'm going to participate today with a fresh mind in order to achieve enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings. Through listening, contemplating, and meditating on the material. So this is a Dharma activity, listening, contemplating, and meditating. So if they are done with the bodhicitta motivation, I'm doing them in order to achieve enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings. It becomes incredibly powerful as the impetus through this entire session, a couple hours, even if that motivation fades from our mind through the force of that inertia, that initial reason for entering into listening, we will create virtuous karma, even if our mind becomes distracted. And we can always revivify that during the teaching. So think, I'm going to participate. I'm going to listen to the words, contemplate their meaning. And when something becomes clear, hold that for some moments to try to develop the wisdom of meditation. I'm going to do this in order to become enlightened so that I can effortlessly, spontaneously, and without error lead all living beings out of suffering into that very same state. Okay. Thank you. Mikhail has joined us. Hi, Mikhail. Elijah, where are you? You're in our...
I'm from Brooklyn.
Oh, you're in
Yeah.
Brooklyn. Okay.
Yeah.
That is one. Okay. So, okay. Any questions about our meditation? Any comments? We've been doing this meditation hundred or more times. Anyone have any observation? Is it getting better? Does it seem like it's still fresh when you do it? No, well, KT is nodding slightly. What do you think, Nadine? What do you think?
Yes, it's getting better because I also do it during the week, and I like that very much. When you mentioned the big bus, I like that very much because I see so many people which I don't like.
Right, right. So in our breathing meditation and in the meditation on the clarity of the mind, in all our meditations, we need to have this ability to forget our negative tendencies, like if we remember, the ignoble liberals, the nasty, what do you say, Democrats, or the the intolerable MAGAs or whatever, that different frames of mind might be going, or the terrible Muslims, or the intolerable state of Israel that's inflicting terror on the people of Gaza. All of these thoughts you have to be able to get rid of. One way is it's just to place your attention on something else, like the breathing or the nature of the mind, or loving kindness, or other objects. I remember as a child, I think I've mentioned to you before, many years I couldn't sleep. I had insomnia because my mind was always thinking. And it was only when I could thought, just let go. So letting go of all of those thoughts and putting ourselves as the driver of the big bus, the big vehicle that's leading all of these beings. Like at the beginning of the Lama Chopa Puja, Rabkar Gesen Chempo Nangne, from the great state of pristine, virtuous mind, sort of like giving up all the ordinary thoughts for some time, and trying to abide in that for some time is so beneficial. Okay. Any thoughts? Anyone? Okay. Someone's trying to say something. John, are you trying to say something?
I was just going to say that I've noticed a change in that meditation where I notice more and more where I'm actually able to be aware of more and more elements of Lamrim, the components of Lamrim. I think sometimes when I've past I've done that, I don't know, maybe I've just picked up on one or two things, and I think that's something that I've noticed, my ability to just key in on more and more points of Lamrim.
Excellent. Yeah, that's good, especially as you teach occasionally lay people, and you want to try to integrate the stages of the path. The more that you have experience of that, the more easily you can give examples to others like that. Okay, so I mentioned before some sad news, the passing of one of my teachers and the teacher of maybe some of you also, the former throne holder of the Ganden tradition. What do we say? His Eminence, Jesun Losang Tenzin, who for many, many years when he was first coming to Deer Park where I lived, we just called him the Kensur Rinpoche. So Ken is short for Kempo, abbot. Sur means former. So he was the former abbot of Gyume Tantric College. I don't think he was ever the abbot of Sarai, where he studied. But having become a La Rampa Geshe at some time, he was a disciple of Geshe Zopa at Sarah, and having become a La Rampa Geshe, he went to as the Sarai tradition is, they go to the lower Tantric college. That doesn't mean lower in quality. It means that in Lhasa, it was the Tantric college on this one hill that was on the lower altitude than the Gyuto. Gyuto means the higher Tantric college. Paul, do you remember visiting either of them in Lhasa, the Gyuto or Gyume?
I don't remember visiting. Maybe. Actually, I think I remember visiting Gyume.
In Lhasa, yeah.
Yeah.
So they're both there. Now of course, there are the equivalents in India and various places.
I've visited both of those, yeah.
So Rinpoche was our teacher. He was a disciple of Geshe Sopa. I saw him many, many times, and he would attend Geshe Sopa's teachings, very humble. I think I've told you the story when one time when he came to Deer Park and he was put in a room and people were bringing flowers and other things, a bowl of fruit, and Rinpoche, is there anything else that can make you comfortable? And Rinpoche said, it's all the nature of suffering. That's okay. I don't need anything. If you bring me anything more, it's just of the nature of suffering. Very, very reminiscent of the, Kunalama Rinpoche, who, when given gifts, as soon as a person left, he would put it under his bed and forget about it and give it away, or like a lion to whom you offer a bale of hay. A lion being carnivorous doesn't find any pleasure in eating grass. Rinpoche gave many, many teachings during the summer courses when Geshe Sopa was teaching. In addition, he gave initiations. When we had ordinations at Deer Park, usually it was Kensur Rinpoche who would read would recite the Vinaya Sutras and things like that, and also at our bi-monthly confessions. He was sort of like a master of all of the various facets of Buddhism, the Vinaya, the Sutra, the Mahayana Abhidharma in the sense of the higher wisdom, such as the text that we're studying and so forth. And so I'm going to just read a little. I think, Doris, you posted on the chat the link to this FPMT page, right?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. So I'm just going to read a little. It says, with deep sadness and reverence, we share the news of a great loss for Tibetan Buddhism in the world. His Eminence, the 104th Ganden Trisur Rinpoche. So that means Ganden Trisur means the Ganden Tipa would mean the holder of the Ganden tradition or the holder of the Gelugpa tradition, the throne holder. Tri means throne. Sort of like the representative of Lama Tsongkhapa. The great Ling Rinpoche had been an earlier Ganden Tipa. Jesun Losang Tenzin passed away, showed the aspect of passing away on September 26th, yesterday, at his residence at Sergey Monastery in Balakupi, India. His residence was just behind the residence that I lived for 2.5, 3 years when I taught Lama Usel there. His Excellency, Ganden Trisur Rinpoche, was the teacher of thousands of Sangha and disciples worldwide and many within the FPMT organization, particularly from Kopan Monastery, where he offered tremendous support to Kopan over the years. And that could be said in many, many places. I think also at Nalanda, where he taught, and other places, they'll all say, oh, particularly here where he taught, so extensively. Participants, also he participated in the 2025 CPMT conference at Kopan. He visited and gave advice there. His Eminence was appointed the 104th Ganden Tipa by His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama in 2017 and successfully served in that seat, in that position until November 2024. The position of Ganden Tipa, which can be translated as holder of the Ganden throne, is the head of the Gelug school of Tibetan Buddhism. Unlike reincarnation lineages, the Ganden Tipa is an appointed position held for 7 years and alternately filled by people who had achieved another lower position called the Jangse Churje or the Sharpa Churje. I think Rinpoche had been the Jangse Churje, isn't that right, Paul? I'm not sure if John knows that well.
I'm trying to remember. I at one point I had notes on all the Ganden Tibas, but I don't actually have his biography, so I'm not sure.
Okay. So we will make some prayers at the end, particularly to try to keep connection with him. You can see the link to that FPMT page, and you can search on the web about that. Okay.
Jungse. He was Ganden Jungse.
Is it Jungse?
There's a Deer Park brief biography of him. I'll put it in the chat.
Right. Thanks, Paul. Okay. So back to crushing and chewing some dry bones. Before, I think, Anna, did you have a question? Or you wanted to make a notice?
Venerable, if it's okay, I'd love to share something about His Eminence.
Yes.
I went to India in 2023 and His Holiness was ill. And so His Eminence, Trisur Rinpoche, came from South India up to North India to Dharamsala, and he taught 2 out of the 3 days. And he brought boxes of golden apples for all of the participants. And
Did you get one?
they were delicious, and his teachings were so wonderful.
His teachings were delicious also. Yeah.
And he for years steadily gave teachings to the monks here on PEI.
PEI, remind me what that means. Oh, Prince Edward Island.
And consistently, yeah, over 500 monks here.
Oh, I did not know that. There's a Gelugpa monastery there?
Yeah, and the nuns too.
Oh, wow. Okay. I did not know that. Thank you, Anna, for mentioning that. I did not know that. I'll have to
And-
check. And Mikhail.
Yeah, and we had the Mahayana edition in French. We just published his teachings about special insights he gave at Vajrayogini Institute. So the book is out like a week ago.
Oh, fantastic. So in French.
In French, yeah.
Is there an equivalent English edition, or was it just your own initiative?
No. It was translated orally, and I edited the transcript. So
oh, I wish I knew.
There is no English.
I wish I knew French. That's excellent. Thank you for that. So, okay. So, where are we? We are starting a, let's see here. Is that the right place? Yeah. Yeah, we're at a point in the text in Thupten Jinpa's text, page 316. If my eyes don't deceive me, is that an 8 or a 6? 316. And in the FPMT translation, page 177. Elijah, do you have either of those texts that you can refer to?
Yes, John emailed it to me.
Okay, excellent. So this is, we're starting here with the outline, refuting, as Jinpa translates, refuting the referent, the arising of consciousness devoid of external reality through the potency of propensities. That's how Thupten Jinpa translates that. And at the end of that title, Jinpa has a note, which he, note 577. If you have the electronic edition, if you just click on that note, it takes you to that. It's very nice. But if you have to look in the book, I don't know what page, that you just have to look for that note, 577. So I'll read it to you. It says, this is the second part of the actual refutation of the Chittamatra school's postulation, their presentation of intrinsically real consciousness. Right? Remember, there were the two things, that consciousness was inherently existent, and there was no external reality that was a different entity from the mind that's perceiving it. Those two factors are interwoven. So this is the second part of the refutation of that. So Khapa divides this critique into two aspects, refuting the analogy, in the Tibetans, pei, proposed to demonstrate the intrinsic reality of consciousness, which is in the written edition, page 307, he says, of Jinpa's translation, and refuting the referent by which he's translating the word dun, the intent of such an analogy, the existence of consciousness in the absence of external reality. The second part of this refutation starts from here. Okay, so refuting the sort of like the aim, the arising, that is, or the intention of the Chittamatras, that consciousness arises devoid of external reality through the potency or the potential or the power of the imprints, the propensities. So the propensities here is what we've been talking about, that are imbued upon the alaya vijnana, right? The alaya vijnana, the storehouse consciousness that Chittamatra says exists, is imbued or stained or imprinted with various seeds or propensities that when they ripen, they give rise to the consciousness and the object that the consciousness knows. So this outline itself has three parts. refuting the view that cognitions of external reality arise or do not arise from the maturation of these propensities or the lack of the maturation. Okay, that'll become clearer when that's the first outline we're going to be talking about. Then secondly, refuting the opponent's restatement, after we refute that, refuting the opponent's restatement that the consciousness without external reality exists. And then third, how refuting the Chittamatra standpoint does not contradict the scriptures. Because one might say, come on, the scriptures, the Buddha said that, there was that phenomena were mind only, and there was no external reality. So how are you justified in refuting this? So how refuting this standpoint does not contradict the scriptures. That would be very interesting. So the first of those three, refuting the view of cognitions of external reality arise or do not from maturation or its lack. This has two parts: stating the opponent's position and refuting that position. So in terms of that, in July 17th, 2000, I think it must have been 2003. I have 2004 here, it's 2003. Geshe Zopa, during the summer course in the morning, said, just on this outline, just talking about the outline, first you have to express, you have to lay out the system of the others, your opponents, their own view, which is the Yogacara view, the Chittamatra view, right? Then you have to reject that. It's not good to come out with many rejections of a system without first properly setting out the opponent's position, right? You might just, without properly explaining what their point of view is, it's not right to start just making refutations. Just as previously we said, and you may remember this quote, you won't remember the Tibetan, Chog Nyemeng Malangpala, Takpe Nima Sharwa, was what meant, and I think Chipa's translation was something similar to this, rising the sun of rejection without the dawning of the opponent's position. So Geshe said, just as like that saying, this is often said, before the dawn rises, the sun cannot rise, right? Before the dawn appears, you can't have the sun rising. That's obvious. Similar to that, without the opponent's position being clearly laid out, or without its being understood, just trying to throw out all kinds of objections and rejections and so forth is of no avail. It's not good. So here the other systems are, when we lay it out. So the first of those, stating the opponent's position, and then we're going to refute that. First, stating the opponent's position. So this will begin with the verse 656 in the Madhyamakavatara Karikas, the first three lines of that, according to Jimpa's way he's putting it into the text here. Remember, the Karikas are not part of Lama Tsongkhapa's Gompa Rapsal. Generally, later editions, they add them in, but they could put the Karikas slightly different places in the commentary. So the verse says, now, if you assert that such perceptions do not occur in those who have clear sight because the potentiality has not matured, it is not merely that the cognizable objects do not exist. Yeah. Is that right? Let's see. Let's figure out what that means. Or let's look at the verse, first of all. Now, if you assert that such perceptions do not occur, so who is saying this, by the way?
Which should be the Chittamatra, the opponent's position, no? I think.
So when it says, now if you assert, who is
Oh.
you?
Yeah, you must be the Chittamatra, or
Is it?
no?
Let's see. In Venerable Jones' translation says, therefore, for those who see, Jimpa says, who have clear sight, therefore, for those who see, there is no ripening of potentials for an awareness. Because of that, for them, there is no awareness. It is not due to the absence of a thing existing as an object of knowledge. So if this is stating the other system, this must be stating the Chittamatra position, right? Okay, so let's figure out what the meaning of those words of the root text in Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary to that. So right after that, Jimpa has in brackets Chittamatra. So this is giving some commentary to that, to those lines. The actual words of the commentary of the exact words come down, I think, at about the third paragraph of that, but let's start. He says, quote, granted, if the presence of objects such as the appearance of floating hair, falling hair, were the condition for the arising of cognitions, such floating hair should appear to someone with no eye malady as well. This, however, is not the case. Does that make sense? Mikhail says no. Louise is saying, I don't know. Yeah. Paul, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, mostly.
So Venerable Joan translated that. If the very existence of an object such as falling hair, Jimpa says floating hair, remember when it was a dashe, is not quite clear. You don't necessarily have to translate it as one or the other. It refers to either the float, the appearance of floating hair, what we call floaters, or the appearance that they're falling down like into your soup or something like that through the having that particular malady, that eye defect. If the very existence of an object such as falling hair, which appears to be falling hair, were the cause for the production of consciousness, there would be the appearance of falling hair also to those without eye floaters, without this particular defect. But there is not. What does that mean? Richard, you're going to make an attempt to explain?
I think, I mean, let me see if I can put it into words. I think what they're granting that if the appearance of falling hair depended on the actual existence of falling hair, then falling hair would appear even to those who didn't see it, even to everybody. Falling hair would appear to everybody, not simply those who were under, not simply those who are diseased.
Why?
Am I getting that right?
That seems to be what it's saying, but I'm saying why?
Why what? Why wouldn't it? Because if something actually exists, then not only the people who are diseased would see it, but everybody would see it. It's just that simple.
But floating hairs do not exist at all. To know with just their appearance, the object itself does not exist at all.
I'm not sure that I understand what's difficult about it. Because it seems pretty obvious. If there's something that exists, and if diseased people see falling hair, and there actually were falling hairs, then non-diseased people would also see the falling hairs.
Right.
That's it. That's what it seems to be saying.
Louise, what do you think?
Yeah, and that's because it's the same seed that produces both the appearance of the falling hairs and the mind
We're
seed.
not talking
We're not
about the
going there?
seeds yet. We're just talking about something more general.
Okay.
Just talking about in theory, as Richard is relating. So if, or as in Venerable Jones' translation, if the very existence of an object such as falling hair,
Right.
or let's say floaters, whatever you want to call them, if the existence of those which appears to be falling hair or floaters, if that were the cause for the production of consciousness, if it were that there was an actual object that was the cause for consciousness, there would be the appearance of falling hair also to those without eye floaters. So the implication is that the people with the malady, with this seeing floaters, that their perception of that is due to some kind of external object, and that external object would also be perceived by those without that malady. Okay, so at this point, again in July 17th, 2003 in the morning, in the summer course, Geshe Sopa said, Yogacara says if the cause of that kind of consciousness to which falling hair appears depends on the actual existence of falling hair out there, that is not correct, because that, Yogacara position is saying there's no external hair out there. But they're trying to refute the Prasangika that says that there is an external world out there. Geshe continued, if some real things existing out there are the cause, then whether your eyes have the defect or not doesn't matter. You should be able to see the falling hairs if they are out there. I think this accords exactly with what Richard understood. But that is not the case. Okay. So then Geshe says, so what is the reason? Well then, what's the reason? So that's the next paragraph starts. If asked, what is it then? What is the case? It is the maturation. This is Chittamatra position, right? It's not that there's an external object out there. That's ridiculous, Prasangika. It is the maturation or the lack of maturation of the seed, the potencies, the propensities imprinted upon one's consciousness in the past that causes the arising or non-arising of such cognitions. Right? That's the standard Chittamatra position, right? Thus, the only person who will perceive floating hair, Chittamatra says, is that person whose propensities imprinted by past perceptions of floating hair have come to maturation or have come to mature. Right? Following? The first part, as Richard explicated for us, is a little more difficult at first to understand. But once you've understood that, this is just saying the Chittamatra position, that it's due to the ripening of the potentials on the mind. When that seed, so there's different names that are given to it. That is the seed, imprint, propensity, whatever else he calls it, potency. Nupa usually is another word for potency. Now it comes with the text now in Jimpa's translation, where some of it is, what do you call it? Highlighted? What is the word? Yeah.
Bolded.
In bold. The bold text in the following paragraph starts to explain the words of the Karika. Remember, it said, the Karika said, the first three lines said, now if you assert that such perceptions do not occur in those who have clear sight because the potentiality is not matured, it is not merely that the cognizable objects do not exist. So in explaining that, Lama Tsongkhapa's following Chandrakirti. Chandrakirti is explaining what he meant in that verse. Now, if you assert that such perceptions, such as that of floating hair, such perceptions do not occur in those who have clear sight and have no, in other words, who have no eye malady, that don't have this eye disease, because the potentiality or the propensity for perceiving floating hairs has not matured in such persons, then it is not merely that such cognitions do not arise because the cognizable objects, the floating hairs, do not exist. Oh. Does that make sense? Richard is our go-to guy here. Did you prepare before, Richard? You read this?
Sadly, I didn't. But what had me holding my head were all the double negatives.
Yeah.
And
Doris and I would agree.
One should accentuate the positive, as the song goes.
Yeah. So
let me see if I can. I'm going to try to parse it out.
Okay, so we're gonna go over it ourselves. So now, if you assert, so that would seem to be saying that it's saying that to the Prasangika, right? Let's see how Venerable Joan translates that.
That's from the main stanza.
Right, but it's part of the text, and Venerable Joan translated also the Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary there. I'm just trying to see exactly where that was. Yeah. So she says, why is that? Because the ripening and non-ripening of the previously deposited latencies that produce consciousness are the cause for the production or non-production of consciousness. Therefore, a consciousness having the aspect of falling hairs arises only for a person who has the ripening of latencies deposited by another previous consciousness having the aspect of hair. Let's go back. Let's see. So the first part said, as Jimpa translated, granted, if the presence of objects such as the appearance of floating hair were the condition for the arising of cognitions, such floating hair should appear to someone with no eye malady as well. This, however, is not the case. So where it says, if asked why is that, what is that then? Venerable Jones said, why is that? Because the ripening or non-ripening, and non-ripening of previously deposited latencies that produce consciousness are the cause for the production and non-production of consciousness. So this is stating their own position then, right? This is stating the Chittamatra position. When it says, what is it then? This is still Chittamatra saying, it is the case that it's the fact that there is maturation or the lack of maturation of potencies or propensities imprinted on one's consciousness in the past that causes the arising or non-arising of such cognitions. Thus, the only person who will perceive floating hair is someone whose propensities imprinted by past perceptions of floating hair have come to mature. We actually mentioned that before. So, because of this kind of only person. So it says, now if you assert that such perceptions, so Venerable Joan has a different translation there. She says, Therefore, for those without eye floaters, without this eye defect, in other words, those who see the objects, who see clearly, there is no ripening of the potentials, that is, the latencies, for an awareness to which falling hair appear. I think that's much clearer than Jimpa's translation. I don't know where he has that construction. So she starts out, therefore, this is the Chittamatra position, for those without eye floaters, in other words, those who see objects clearly, like in that statement, those who have clear sight. Where is that? Therefore, for those without eye floaters, those who see objects, there is no ripening of potentials. That's the reason they don't see the floating hair. That is, there's no ripening of the latencies, the seeds on the alaya vijnana, for an awareness to which falling hair appears. Because of that, for those without eye floaters, an awareness that sees falling hair is not produced. So that our Chittamatra position is good, but that explains why they don't see it, because they don't have that particular ripening of that seed, whereas the people with the eye malady, they have the ripening of that seed, or that imprint, or that whatever else he calls it, the various synonyms there, all meaning the same thing. It is not the case that awareness is not produced. Here's a nice double negative for you. It is not the case, it is not that the awareness is not produced. So it's not the case that it is not produced due to the absence of a thing that exists as falling hair, that is an object of knowledge. Make sense? No? Okay, Ron, that's a little bit, yeah.
In that case, it's a triple negative.
Yeah. So let me read Geshe Zopa's commentary here. Again, just sometimes just a little, like for my mind, reading Venerable Jones' translation of that makes it much more clear what's being said. Maybe going back and looking at Jimpa, then you might be able to construct it to make sense. But sometimes what Geshe Zopa said also can bring some clarity there. So he says, those who do not have this eye defect do not see falling hair and so forth, the floaters, the falling or floating, whatever they are, whatever, because they do not have this kind of ripening of the imprint or seed. That's the Chittamatra position. When you ripen that kind of seed, you will see. If you have a ripening of that kind of seed, you will have the vision of that floaters and so forth. If you don't have that, if you don't have that ripening, the appearance doesn't arise. That is the reason. And then I have in parentheses here, after having put a lozenge in his mouth, you remember I told you many times Geshe would say, yeah. So he said, so I have in parentheses, after putting a lozenge in his mouth, Geshe said, like I have this imprint to eat very nice things. to suck on this very nice lozenge, you don't have the imprint. He's joking, right? But making some connection here. But it is not that the awareness is not produced due to the absence of a thing existing as falling hair, a knowable object. Whether the knowable object exists or not depends mainly on the imprint on alaya vijnana. That is the Chittamatra position. Okay. John, are you following? Are you still in the car? Maybe he's in
I'm
transit.
following. I'm just, I don't have such a great network, so I'm keeping the camera off.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, no problem. KT, what do you think?
I was getting a little stuck on the word merely, but is this a correct way of rewriting it in my mind? If I say, for people of clear sight, it's not that the floating hairs don't exist, it's that the propensities have not matured.
It's not that the floating
Don't exist.
no, it's
Uh,
they don't exist. I don't think that would be the right construction there. You wouldn't.
Okay.
It's not that they don't exist.
But it's that word merely. He wants to go beyond merely.
Where are you
Oh.
finding the word merely in?
In the Karika, the third line of the Karika, it's not merely that the
Oh, not merely the cognizable object. Yeah,
don't exist, but
right.
that the propensities have not matured. Like it's
Right.
not just
Oh, okay, I see where you are. The last two lines of that paragraph, at least in my electronic edition, then it's not merely that such cognitions do not arise because the cognizable objects of floating hairs do not exist. Yeah.
like we have to go beyond that they don't. It's beyond that they don't exist for the people of clear sight, but
So
that the propensities have not arisen. Or
again, so this is a little bit difficult. So let's see here. Yeah. So this would be in the last of the Tibetan there. So I don't think that the Tibetan it should be read the way that Jimpa translated it there. Now I'm sure. Mikhail, are you following in the Tibetan?
Yeah, I have it here.
Okay, I'm not just checking.
But it is, yeah, it is not produced, yeah. Mikewa min.
Migyoa yingi sheja tashe du yopa ngopodang dawe lode mikewa mino. But I don't see the word merely in there anywhere. Do you, Paul? Or John, obviously in the cart, is not able to look at the Tibetan text because Venerable Jones' translation doesn't have the word merely in there. She has, therefore, for those without eye floaters, without that eye defect, those who see objects, there is no ripening of the potentials. That is, there's no ripening of the latencies for an awareness to which falling hair appears. Because of that, for those without eye floaters, an awareness that sees falling hair is not produced. It is not that awareness is not produced due to the absence of a thing, that it exists as falling hair. That's where Jimpa has the word merely in there, right? It is not the case. Sheja tashe du yopa ngopodang delwe lode mikewa mino. So I think that from my own point of view, again, comparing it to Venerable Jones' translation, I don't think that Jimpa's translation, which is, I think, is one of the reasons KT was asking that question about merely. The word merely is, I'm not sure where Jimpa got that from in the root text. Do anyone else see? Paul, do you see in the? I didn't put down the Tibetan of that Karaka, unfortunately, whether that's.
No, in the Karika, neither. There is no tsam or anything like.
Right. So that's, I think if that was bothering you, KT, maybe that's one of the problems that Thupten Jimpa's translation added in some implication of the merely there. What does Paul have? Gangitya. Okay. So Paul has the Tibetan there. Gangche Tongwa Dagla Lo Nuni Minme Deche Dela Lo Migur Sheja Yongo Delwe Minshena. Yeah, so it doesn't appear that the word merely is in that sentence. Maybe that's Jimpa's sort of interpolation of that. What do you think, Suvash?
Venerable George, I also have another translation that is by the Padmakara translation group.
Yeah.
And I think there, I think it's much clearer if I read their translation. For those with healthy sight, you say the mind's potential is not ripe, and this is why they do not see. It's not because there is no object that the mind does not perceive. And the last sentence is, but this potential has no being, thus the mind is not established.
Right. So that's that fourth line is coming up in our.
Right.
So, yeah, they sort of occur again. That doesn't have the word merely in there. Louise, what do you think? You wanted to remind me to take a break. Okay. Well, let's sort of sort this out a little bit further first. So it's making sense so far? Are you lost? We were worried a little bit, Suvash, earlier, just an aside, a little joking aside here, that in Portland, because we understood that there were, what was that, the government was sending troops there or something, right? Is that going to impact you at all?
If they do, I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, be careful, because you don't look like a pasty white American like me, which would probably go through the, the checkpoints. Yeah, go on. You're not an immigrant. Okay. Okay, so I'm just going to read the next position, and then we'll take a little break. Now refuting that position. So that was presenting the Chittamatra position. They're saying that the floating hairs are seen only in those for whom the latencies have ripened, matured, not for those who don't. So that explains the person who sees them is because they've ripened. They've created the cause for that in the past. And for those who don't see it, they haven't ripened. So now refuting that position. So now this is the Prasangika position. This is three parts. Refuting the intrinsic existence of potentiality in present cognition. So potentiality here is the same as, say, imprint. So potentiality, or one way of translating it is like nupa, the Tibetan word nupa. That's another way of referring to the imprint because it has the potential to give rise to something, right? Refuting the intrinsic existence of potentiality in present cognition. Second, refuting the intrinsic existence of potentiality in future cognition. And then guess what? Refuting the third one, refuting the intrinsic existence of potentiality in past cognition. So that there's no inherently existent or intrinsically existing potential or imprint in the present, in the future, in the past. And then the first of that, I'll just read before we take break, refuting the intrinsic existence of potentiality in the present cognition. Let me see. Yeah. That verse has the fourth line that of the previous stanza that Suvash had just read from the Pimmakara translation. So that fourth line was, but such potential does not exist, so the cognition is not established. Potentiality cannot exist for that which is already arisen. So this is actually referring to the present. It's something that is present because that potentiality, for that which is all. So you have two things. You have the potential or the imprint and what it will give rise to, right? The potentiality to eat this lozenge and the lozenge itself. Potentiality cannot exist for what is already arisen. For what has not yet arisen to, there can be no potentiality. Okay, so that's where we're going to continue. We're going to take a little break. Okay, we took a little break there. Good to see you refreshed. Okay, so now we're in this, we're going to refute the Chittamatra position that was set. Remember, Geshe-la said you had to really express, first of all, the other's position before you start refuting it. So that was setting out the Chittamatra position. Now the refutation of that, and it's going to be refuting the existence of potential, which is another way of saying the quality of the imprint, right? The imprint, either the seed or the bhakcha, however you want to call it, can also be called nupa because it has the potential to give rise to something, right? That thing that it gives rise to is not yet existing, but it has the potential to get. So that's one way of applying it. So refuting the inherent existence of that potential in present cognition, future cognition, and past. So first, refuting the intrinsic existence of potentiality in the present cognition. We just read that stanza. Let me see here. Yeah, so this is the first of those. So the Lama Tsongkhapa's commentary to those three lines, which is the fourth line of verse 56 and the first two lines of verse 57. Lama Tsongkhapa says, if there were an intrinsically existent potentiality, an inherently existent potential, an inherently existent seed, one might allow for the possibility of the occurrence or not occurrence of cognitions on the basis of that maturation or the absence of maturation of such a potentiality. But such inherently established potential does not exist. So, therefore, this cognition that you assert to be intrinsically real is not established. This is the Prasangika position, right? This is more or less what we would say, right? If there were an inherently existent potential. So when you say something like that, because Prasangika says there is not, such a thing can't exist, but if it were to exist, almost you could say anything, right? If it were to exist. If there were an inherently existent potential, I'm transposing intrinsically existent for inherently existent. If there were an inherently existent potential, one might allow for the possibility of the occurrence or non-occurrence of cognitions on the basis of the maturation or the absence of maturations of such a potential. So that in that case, we could address that if it existed, but such an inherently established potential does not exist. So this cognition that you Chittamatrans assert to be inherently existent or intrinsically real is not established. So then it says, how is it that it is not established, you might ask. Or as Venerable Jones says, why is that? More succinctly. Chimpa's translation says, when you conceive of such potentiality, it is associated with the, is it associated with the present cognition? Okay, so this is, who's speaking here? Is this Prasangika or Chittamatra speaking?
Prasangika.
It's Prasangika, right? Okay, so we said it's not established that a potential, inherently existent potential exists. We say that it does not exist. So this intrinsically, inherently existent consciousness or cognition that the Chittamatrans assert is not established. So why is it not established? When you conceive of such potentiality, so what is the potentiality for? The potential to give rise to a consciousness, right? That's what we're talking about. And give rise to its object. When you conceive of such potentiality, is it associated with the present cognition? Or alternatively, is it connected with a past cognition or future cognition? Okay, so we're delving into sort of Nagarjuna-like argumentation that Chandrakirti also is very famous for. You know, Prasangika sort of analyzing, like say when we're talking about coming and going, you know, walking. Are you walking over that which is already walked over, or that which is about to be walked over, or that which is presently being walked over in the second chapter? Here, this sort of similar kind of analysis. Is that how you read also, Paul? Yeah, okay. So now, for what is already arisen, that is present cognition, no such intrinsically real potentiality is possible. Such a thing cannot exist. For what is not yet arisen, the future too, there can be no such potentiality. So does that make sense? I'm going to call on Richard because he's been gawking this pretty well so far. Does that make sense?
You're still muted.
Oh, yeah, he was thinking.
No, I was thinking and I was muted.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
I can do two things at once. I think it makes sense. It basically, if I understand this passage correctly, it's saying that potentialities are things the Chittamatrans believe inherently exist. And if they inherently exist, then there can't be a potentiality of something that's present because it's already arisen. But there can't be a potentiality for something that's past. That's a little tricky.
That's going to be coming. Yeah, that's another section. So he just says here that for
Yeah.
what not yet arisen in the future, that too there can be
Yeah.
no such potentiality. Okay,
Yeah.
that's pretty close. So so I'll read Venerable Jones' translation. Oh, well, let me read the next paragraph first also, or part of the next paragraph. For instance, when one asserts potentiality in present cognition, the cognition and the potentiality would exist simultaneously. When it says potentiality in present cognition, okay. Venerable Joan has that. Wait, am I getting the right place here? So how is that not established, you might ask? When you conceive of potentiality, is it associated with the present, the past, or the future cognition? For what is already arisen, he has in italics there, that is present cognition, no such intrinsically real potentiality is possible. So that's what we're trying to understand. So what is already arisen, so when we talk about the three times, you can talk about that which is not yet arisen, that which has arisen, and that which will arise in the future. Mikhail, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'm wondering if it is talking about cause and effect. I mean, if the effect is already there, then the cause is no more. And if the effect is not there, then there is no cause.
Right.
Is it?
But for Chittamatra, are cause and effect necessarily sequential? I can see two scholars. What do you think, Mikhail?
Yeah, they're saying that the potential and the mind are simultaneous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they're saying that the cognition and its object
yeah,
simultaneous, but that the potential is the cause of them. Let's see here. I'm trying to find what Joan said. Therefore, those without floaters, I think I have the wrong translation here. How is that? Yeah, I have the wrong translation. So what does she say here?
I think it's the middle of page 178, Venerable George, because she puts the quotations in different locations.
Right. So
after 57AB, I
Right.
think, then halfway through the next paragraph, if a potential for present consciousness is asserted, both the consciousness and the potential would exist at the same time. I think, is that it?
It could be. I'm trying to find that. That's in the middle of that paragraph.
Yeah.
It's between, I think it's is it between 656D and 657AB? That's what I'm seeing. Why is it not established? And then is analog to how is it that it is not established in Jimpa?
Oh yeah, no, we're taking a look at Venerable Jones. So let's read there. When potentials are conceived, they're counted as either having a relationship with a present consciousness or relationship with a past consciousness or a future consciousness. Right? Yeah, because why is that not established? That comes after that. So that's more clear. And established by way of its own entity potential. So an inherently existent potential for that produced in the time being, that is, for a present consciousness, is impossible. That's equivalent to what Jimpa was saying there, maybe a little more clear. If a potential for which is established by way of its own entity, that means an inherently existent potential for that produced in the time being. I'm not sure that's exactly right. I'm not sure if that's a Rashik or what she says there. If a potential, an inherently existent potential for that produced at the time being, in the time being, that is for a present consciousness, is impossible. Why is that impossible? Inherently existent potential for that which is produced now in the present.
Because the potential and the produced object would be existing simultaneously.
Right. And the potential is said to be the cause of the, I think Chidamatra would accept that is the cause of the arising of the consciousness and its object, right? Let me see if Geshe Zopa had a comment here. No. Okay. Then she continues. It just says that it's impossible. There also does not exist a potential for an unproduced, that is to say, a future entity. If a potential for a present consciousness is asserted, both the consciousness and the potential, excuse me, I have to get closer to read this. With respect to the two, a potential having the, if a potential for a present consciousness is asserted, you've got a present consciousness and you assert that there is a potential for that, both the consciousness and the potential would exist at the same time. When, with respect to the two, the potential and that having the potential, what has the potential or the potential possessor?
The imprint?
No, the potential is another way of saying the imprint. So the potential, well, maybe in a sense you could say that, but the potential possessor would be the cognition, let's say, because it has the potential. With respect to the two, the potential and that having the potential, it is stated, consciousness of a potential in the sixth case, the connective case that she translates there. So here we're going to get into the grammar a little bit. John, are you back on? You're still in your car. Okay.
I'm in my car, but I'm listening and I'm attending.
Okay. So let me read the next paragraph here in Thupten Jinpa's translation. For instance, when one asserts potentiality in the present cognition, the cognition and the potentiality would exist simultaneously. In that case, if the relationship between the potentiality and its bearer is represented by the sixth genitive case as the cognition's potency, so that makes clear that what's the bearer of the potentiality is the cognition, right? Because it says the cognition's potency or potentiality, the two cannot be separate entities. Yet the potent cognition cannot be the same as the potentiality itself, for if it were, then the effect would have no cause distinct from the effect itself. Okay, so at this point, there's a note in Jinpa's text 5788. So let's address that first. So Jinpa says, this argument seems to trade on two distinct senses of the Tibetan word nupa. In Sanskrit, do you know what that is, John?
I think it's Shakti or
Yeah.
Shakta, something.
Yeah, that's what he has also, his Sanskrit Shakti. So you've probably heard of that Shakti, so it's like in Kundalini and so forth, some explosive power or something like a potential to be able to do something. So the Tibetan word nupa can mean potentiality or potency. They almost mean the same thing to me, but he's making a distinction there. Potentiality means it has the potential to give something in the future. Potency is more the sense I associate with the word Shakti, sort of like it's potent, right? It's strong. In the first sense, in the sense of potentiality, which is how the Chittamatra opponent seems to understand it, potentiality would be the cause of the cognition that results from it. In the second sense, however, the sense of nupa meaning potency or power, potency can be understood as an attribute of the cognition, such as when we speak of a potent cognition, or, like a, how else would we say that in English? We don't usually say potent cognition, we say active cognition, sort of a strong cognition. Anyway. So, yeah. So that was Jimpa's note. And then there is the FPMT translation of that. Okay, let me just get that right. Okay. For instance, when one asserts potentiality in the present cognition, the cognition and the potentiality would exist simultaneously. In that case, if the relationship between the potentiality and its bearer is represented by the sixth case, he says the sixth genitive case. That's not, I don't think that's correct way to present it. The sixth case is the genitive case. The sixth, the genitive case. What does that mean? So take a look at the PDF that Doris kindly put in there. And I'm going to read a little bit from Geshe Zopa as he gave this in the summer of 2003. The sixth case means the genitive case. That means the sixth of 8 cases. Does anyone not know what cases are? What's another way of translating that in other terminology when we take the 6 cases? What another way of using it in English? Do you know, Paul or John?
The sixth declension or
6 declensions. Is that right, John? Any other way?
Yeah, I mean, we don't have cases in English, but you would just say it's when the possessive using a preposition to make it possessive.
Right. So we don't. So usually, if one studies Sanskrit or Latin, and I think Italian and maybe other Romance languages, they do talk about what do they usually use when we talk about grammar of those languages, the Indo-European languages? Do we talk about cases or declensions? What's the normal term?
Déclinaison in French.
What is it, Michael?
Déclinaison, declension.
Declension.
Yes, yes, you do use that in Romance languages. Yeah.
Okay, so here there are 6. So say, for instance, the first declension or the first case is the nominative case. So that just means when you're giving names and so forth and so on. So let me just read what Geshe said. The 6th case means the genitive case, the 6th of 8 cases or 8 declensions. Sanskrit has 8 grammatical cases or 8 grammatical declensions, same as some of the Latin and so forth. There's a great correspondence there. We have kind of similar 6 or 8 cases, means 8 special kinds of linguistic indications or declensions. For example, in English, maybe the first one is ngo tombe da, or the name or nominative case, something like that, Geshe said. That's the first case or the first declension. The second is lesu jawe da or lesu jawa. What does lesu jawa mean?
The object upon which the action is done, something like that.
Yeah. So that is called the accusative case. Is that something that we use in English? Do we say that very often, the accusative case? I wish Diana was here. She would probably have.
I think if you studied English 50 or 60 years ago in school, they talked about the accusative case, but
Okay.
But we don't.
So the accusative case is like it sounds like you're accusing someone. So it's talking about the object upon which the action is being done. The third case, the chepe da, means the doer or agent, or in other words, the instrumental case. By such the deed that was done by such and such. Fourth, the goche gida, the purpose showing is what is called the dative case. The fifth, the jungkungi da, the place from which it comes is the ablative case. So that will be coming up just in our text right here. We're going to be talking about especially the sixth, first of all, sixth case, which is a genitive case, and the fifth case, which is the what is it called? The ablative. Okay. The sixth case is called the delwe da, connection with the genitive or possessive case. And then although Geshe didn't mention, or maybe he mentioned it another time, the seventh case is the tennegi da, the locative case. So you know the locative case, like in Tibetan, we had just the letter la or something like that. Like on or at or something like that, the locative, where it's located. The eighth is the bubej da, the vocative case. So I've mentioned that several times in our teachings when you say, Maitreya, you call out to someone, that's the vocative case, right? How you would decline those things. For example, if you talk about the relationship between the branch and the tree, okay, you have a tree and it has branches, right? So there are different ways of saying. You can say the branch from the tree. When would you say that? Well, let's say you had the branch cut down, and someone said, "Where did you get that?" This is the branch from the tree. From the tree. So that would be, what case is that?
The fifth case ablative.
For example, if you're talking about the relationship between the branch of the tree, and you say the branch from the tree, then where the branch comes from is the ablative. If you say the branch of the tree, that's the sixth case, the genitive case, the tree's branch, that is the sixth case in connection with the genitive or possessive case. The word of the branch of the tree, the word of shows this. If you say branch tree without any connecting particle between there, it doesn't make sense, right? You need to say the branch from the tree or the branch of the tree, right?
Venerable George, I think this is the problem, because I think you can say branch tree in Sanskrit, and that's what they're debating is branch tree Sanskrit. Does it mean the branch from the tree, or does it mean the branch of the tree? Or
okay. I'm trying to get. I'm losing my text here. Let me get this. There we go. How come I can't see that here? Okay, let me go back. So anyway, you can read that. I'm just going to try to read through it a little bit more if I can. There we go. If you say branch tree without any connecting particle, maybe in English, it doesn't make sense in English. As Paul is saying, you could say it in Sanskrit. But of tree, if you say it, the branch of the tree, it shows that the relationship of the tree and the branch. So the text says, is the sixth case, potential and potential possessor means consciousness of the potential, nupe namshe. right? So in Tibetan, nupa means potential, namshe means consciousness. So that little letter I, the apostrophe I, when it says nupe, that's how we would pronounce it in sort of wily pronunciation of that. Nupe namshe, that means the consciousness, that's the final word, namshe, of the potential. Without the particle of, that is that little I there, consciousness potential doesn't make sense. Between there needs to be some joining word. And Geshe-la said, do you know Tibetan grammar? So some of you know. So the particles, some of you studied a little bit of Tibetan, know when we talk about, when you say, my cup, you have to say, you can't say nga cup. You have to say nge cup. the cup of mine. So, and the word, the particle that you use depends upon the final letter that you're adjoining it to. So it might be GI, it might be GYI, it could be KYI. Can it be KI? No, there's no such, no. It can be just the particle I, just the letter I, or YI. We say yi is another way of doing it. Ngapo, what does that mean? Ngapo means there are the five. Gi, gi, ki, e, yi. Ngabo. There are five letters which indicate some of them gi, gi, some of them are gi, gyi, some of them kyi, some of them I. That kind of thing showing here is yi. Nupe, namshe, nupa yi, nupe is all ways of saying the same thing. It shows the sixth case. I've written there. I show. I've left off the T. Anyway, similar to the branch of the tree, nupe namshe, the consciousness of the ability or the ability's consciousness. Is that another way of saying it? The cup of George, George's cup, both are legitimate, right? We can say it either way. Anyway, similar to the branch of a tree, nupe namshe, the consciousness of the ability or the ability's consciousness, the potential's consciousness. They say ni, this is going from the Tibetan text. If you put it that way, then the two are not suitable as different objects. If you were to use it, the genitive case, maybe this is what Paul was saying. If you were to interpret the juxtaposition of nupa and consciousness as the genitive case, they're not suitable as different objects. Hence, the consciousness of the potential is not suitable to exist as the potential itself. What does that mean? That is, Geshe-la's commentary is this, that is, same time, the ability and the consciousness, or the potential in the consciousness, the relation is like that, simultaneity, same time. Then say these are inherently same time. Then they are not cause and effect. So that the consciousness of the ability or the potential's consciousness means like consciousness which is ability itself, kind of like ability or potential, showing like the same thing. Since the two are not suitable as different objects, not different natures, because they should be inherently the same nature. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to a little bit more, and we'll discuss this on Monday again as you have the PDF. Anna, did you just raise your hand? Okay. Okay. So then Geshe-la's commentary says that so what is in italics here is sort of paraphrasing the Lama Tsong Khapa's commentary. The consciousness of the potential, right? The nupe namshe is not suitable to exist as the potential itself. Nupe nidu yopa merikpa. Mirik. It's not suitable to exist as the potential itself. The consciousness of the ability, or the consciousness of the potential, and the ability itself are kind of the same thing, no difference. So therefore, consciousness of the potential means the consciousness and the potential are at the same time. If they are independently different or independently the same, inherently the same, if you say same, you cannot have this here. So this needs to be clarified, but just to read it, just to get it in our, sort of put it out there first of all. If it, that is consciousness, exists as its potential, so if the consciousness and the potential are the same, the result would have no cause different from itself, because the potential is meant to be the cause of the consciousness, right? So cause and effect. Are cause and effect the same? They're always supposed to be different, right? And on top of that, can cause and effect, from present Giga point of view, can cause and effect be simultaneous? No. Right? If consciousness exists as its potential, the result would have no cause different from itself. And then the sentence continues, but Geshe-la says, if they are inherently the same nature, the potential and the consciousness, if they're the same thing, no difference in entity, just name or word, potential, consciousness of the potential, consciousness which is potential, or potential which is consciousness, same kind of thing. If you talk of inherent way, you talk about them in being inherently existent, these cannot be cause and effect. Even if one is the result, one is the cause, if you accept that way, if you want to say that the potential is the cause and the cognition is the effect, the result which does not have a cause, gyumepa chendugyur, does not exist there, because they are the same thing. Result which does not have a cause. Gyumepa chendugyur, cause does not exist there because they are the same thing. If they are inherently the same nature, then you don't have a separate cause. Okay. Just putting it out there, you have to think about this. Same way when rising sprout, when a sprout arises and its ability or seed or potential, right? So if we think about a sprout, so we have the seed or in other words, the potential to give rise to the sprout, right? Another way of saying it. When rising of a sprout and its ability or seed or potential, if they are the same time and are not different natures, well, what is the case? The seed and the sprout, are they at the same time? Remember, we went over this when we talked about generation from other, production from other. Is a seed and a sprout, are they simultaneous? Why not, Suvash? You seem to be certain about this.
A cause and effect cannot be simultaneous.
Right. But also when we talked in the particular example of the seed, remember we said the approaching of the destruction of the seed was simultaneous with the approaching of the production of the sprout. But the seed and the sprout never exist at the same time because the seed is said to be the cause of the sprout, just as Suvash is saying, that cause and effect can't be simultaneous. Same way, when a sprout is rising and its ability or a seed or potential, if they are of the same time and not different natures, then when the sprout rises, the seed would not be destroyed. If they were simultaneous, the seed would still exist at the time of the sprout. That was one of the arguments that we used at that time. The seed would still be there, undestroyed. Usually there is cause and effect. When the sprout rises, the seed is destroyed. Usually the direct cause, when we talk about different causes, remember, direct cause of the sprout is the seed. Indirect cause is maybe the previous incarnations of that seed, in the previous plants where it came from, the indirect cause. But when you talk about the direct cause, usually direct cause is the seed and the sprout is the result. As soon as the sprout appears, the seed is destroyed. If you are thinking here the same thing, if you're thinking the same thing here, no different, same time, same entity, if you say same nature, then that kind of situation will happen. That is based on the assumption of an inherent kind of nature. Okay, I'm just going to read the first part of this because this is referring to the second interpretation, the fifth case. Now, in the second way, those two, the potential and the potential possessor, so that means the seed and the cognition, right? The potential to give rise to the cognition. How are they related? If you put the fifth case, the ablative case, that means the word from, as in the branch from the tree. Remember we talked about that before. You could say the branch of the tree or the branch from the tree. The branch of the tree or the branch from the tree. Still talking about the branch, but the relationship with tree is understood in a different way. If you put that way, from then the potential possessor, that is the cognition, the consciousness, the potential itself is the seed. Those two are between there. The consciousness from the potential. So the consciousness is coming from the potential. If you're interpreting the juxtaposition of those two words with the fifth case, if that kind of word is out there, if this time consciousness rising cannot have the same time as the seed, the consciousness cannot be produced at the same time as the seed. The seed and the consciousness should be separate. One is first ability in the seed being the potential or ability, and then the consciousness will come from that. They cannot be the same time. The seed, which is the same time with the consciousness, cannot arise from that, because the result would exist at the time of the cause. In that case, first of all, present consciousness does not have a potential that is its cause. Okay, I'm going to stop reading there. There's a little bit more to finish that page, but we can talk about that on Monday and next class. So this is indicating that this little section, a little bit complicated, so it's worth going over that, maybe reading that PDF, even though Geshe-la's English is a little bit broken sometime. You have to sort of interpret, understand what he's talking about. So after that note 578 that we read already, remember we said that argument seems to trade on the two distinct senses of the word nupa in Tibetan, which means potential or potency. So right after that, there's another sentence or two. Furthermore, even when the sprout is born, the seed would persist without disintegrating. If, however, the relationship between the potentiality and its bearer is represented by the fifth ablative case we just talked about as, quote, cognition from potentiality, it would be incorrect to assert cognition has already arisen from the potentiality that is contemporaneous with it. For there would be the consequence that the effect would already exist at the time of the cause. So the so-called potentiality, the purported cause of the cognition, does not exist in the present cognition. Okay, so that was the first outline. Then the second outline is refuting the intrinsic existence of potentiality in future cognition. Then the next outline would be the refuting the intrinsic existence of potentiality in past cognition. Okay. How are we doing? Is your head, has your head exploded? Yeah? No?
Thank you for the handout, Venerable, and for explaining this. There's no way I would have understood it if I didn't have that explanation today. So thank you.
Well, thank you for saying you understood it. I haven't understood it yet, so I'm proud of you. So it's we can say a work in progress, understanding this. A little bit difficult because we're not so familiar with, some of us are not so familiar with cases or declensions. What we're talking about, the ablative or the genitive case. Maybe you've heard those words before, genitive, or what's another way of saying possessive case? What other way can you say the sixth case? The possessive, the genitive.
Connective.
Was it?
Connective.
Connective, yes. I think one of the translations there, the connective case. The ablative coming out of. So it might be worth taking a look at that handout. And even though it may not be clear at first, when you read that and then you read Jimpa and Venerable's translation, you can start to see what the translations are getting at. Then go back and read the PDF again, and the PDF may make much more clear sense. I think I mentioned several times in the past, it said that Isaac Newton, when he was first, what was he reading? Not the Principia Mathematica. There was some great treatise on mathematics.
It's the Principia Naturalis or something like that.
Some text that he was reading, and he said the first time he read it, he didn't understand anything. So that but he left some imprint. Sort of the stones of the wall were put there. They may not have been arranged yet. Then the terminology was being familiar. The second time he read it, he understood a little. The third time he read it, understood it a little bit more. And then finally, he became a master of that genre. So the same thing here. The first time you read this, it may be completely mystifying, but at least we have a great wealth of subsidiary material like Geshe-la's commentary, Jimpa's translation of Lama Tsongkhapa, Venerable Jones' translation, our own investigation of it, our own analysis. So we'll continue this on Monday, and certainly next Saturday we'll review this again before we go on to the future cognition. So how are we doing? Anyone have anything they need immediately to have the salve of Dharma on their irritation, mental irritation?
Well, Venerable George, it seems like it's almost like the question of the potential or seeds in the Alaya Vijnana is irrelevant, that it's the point of attack is simply the assertion of the inherent existence of them. That it doesn't.
That seems to be the gist of the question, yeah.
Yeah, that it doesn't matter whether the idea of like, oh, there's seeds deposited and they're ripening seems irrelevant. It's all comes down to whether they're asserted as inherently existent or not.
Right, but one has to go through this argument to be able to refute the Chittamatra position. By the way, who is that behind you in that beautiful tanka?
That's Dignaga.
That's Dignaga. So I had to expand my screen to see that. So there's Dignaga debating. So that's a good example. Okay, anyone have any question before we end? Right now in the world, there's so much going on. We want to be able to dedicate our merits to world peace. Rachel Ryder, who's one of our usual members, is attending the online Kalachakra rite at Land of Medicine Buddha this morning for world peace. Usually Kalachakra is associated with world peace. Also with the passing of Khensur Rinpoche, we're going to try to make some prayers to be able to meet him in future lives as reincarnation and so forth. There's no need for us to pray that he meet the proper Mahayana guru, as he already is a very highly realized being and has his own karma and probably choice of where to be reborn and so forth. So let's dedicate the virtues that we've created. Due to these virtues, both the collection of merit and the collection of wisdom, may I quickly become a Guru Buddha and lead all migrators without exception into that very same state. Dei Sala. May the supreme precious bodhicitta that has not yet arisen arise and grow as a result of these virtues, and may that which has not arisen in my own mind and in the minds of others, and may that which has arisen in my mind and the minds of others not diminish, but increase more and more as a result of these virtues. And then prayer for the quick sight of the holy face of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, peerless teacher and assembly of children of the victorious ones, means the Bodhisattvas, Shravakas and Pratika Buddhas. So peerless teacher maybe refers to Buddha himself or all the gurus, and the Bodhisattvas, Shravakas, and Pratika Buddhas, all of the great Arya beings, victorious, then in particular, the conqueror Losang, that means Losang Drakpa, Lama Tsongkhapa, who is the spiritual father to his two spiritual sons, Gyaltsab Je and Kedrup Je, together with your lineage, your Gelugpa lineage, all of the objects of refuge of the infinite realms. So all of the other lineages and objects of refuge in the various realms, pure lands and so forth, please bestow here and now the virtue and goodness to accomplish this prayer. In upholding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice, you, Lama Zopa, wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable Venerable Guru, to you I make this request. Please come quickly. Sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, while striving exclusively for the welfare of the conqueror's teachings. So here conqueror means, victorious one means the Buddha, Shakyamuni. While striving exclusively for the welfare of the conqueror's teachings and for the sake of mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. You passed away. At this point, I lost hope. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truths of the oceanic blessings of the three jewels of the triple gem and the great waves of the bodhicitta of the bodhisattvas, this calling on the power of the words of truth, may the smile of a new reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for us fortunate disciples. And finally, all of our gurus, the great Lama who just passed away yesterday, the Dalai Lama, Yangtze Rinpoche, Serkon Rinpoche, all of the great Lamas, You who are my eyes for viewing all of the infinite scriptures, supreme gateways for fortunate ones traveling to liberation. So gateway means through contact with them is an entryway into the path that leads to liberation and enlightenment. Engaging as you do with skillful means, moved by mercy, illuminating spiritual friends. I make this request, so Adeb. So the implication is, the request is, please live long and stable lives. Yeah. So with so much tumultuous activity going on in the world today, in the world stage, in the national stage, in our own lives, and so forth, it's just the moment to practice the lojong, right? The training of the mind, transforming adverse conditions into the path. So that's always worth going back and looking at again and again, and thinking, always alternating between generating, the main aim of the lojong is to actualize the two bodhicittas, the conventional bodhicitta, which means the wish to achieve enlightenment for the sake of sentient beings, and ultimate bodhicitta, the wisdom that realizes emptiness, to actualize those in our consciousness. So whatever you do, to maybe alternate between, how can I look at this as a, I have to look at this that is so terrifying in terms of emptiness. I have to look at this in terms of bodhicitta and compassion and so forth. So I look forward to seeing you all next Saturday, some of you on Monday. Maybe surprise me, all of you will be on Monday. Take care.
Thank you, Venerable George.
Thank you, Venerable George.